order the Pickens County Council work session of Monday, July 21st, 2025. First up is the invocation and the pledge. Councilor Linville.
I've been asking constituents to submit invocations, and this one was submitted to me by the Unitarian Universalist Association as a building in Clemson. Rivers and streams follow their own courses, but the water molecules are indistinguishable. No one would confuse a candle flame for lava, yet in each the fire dances. An invisible force both knocks down trees and holds birds aloft. The air remains indifferent to its uses. Diamond, desert, Denali, and dirt each tell their different stories, all with the earth as protagonist. Whatever our sacred paths, whatever our beliefs and practices, however we gather in community, we all honor the spirit of life, the spirit of compassion, the spirit of justice, and the spirit of love. How many stars are in the sky? All of them. Blessed be. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Item up is 2A. We'll talk about goals. And just first of all, just kind of review each goal we kind of had in the past, what we accomplished, and then state the 3 goals. So the administration is up first.
Oh, you're making me go first.
Yes, I do. So your first goal, your first 3 goals, as I remember, were employee pay. We had a step increase and cost of living increase of 5%. EMS Medic 1, which is in the works. Highway 11, you talked about the donor hole up there, which we took care of. Conservation Bank rules, which we took care of. And Mile Creek, we approved phase 1. So you did very well. What do you got?
I feel good about it. Thank you.
Going forward. What do you got?
Well, I'm going to do the very thing you told me not to do, Mr. Sada, but I'm going to do it just to illustrate something. I asked the staff ideas. There's 19 of them. That's specifically what you told me not to do. So you can't really tell the bold right there, but basically there's a common 3 themes. And so basically taking all the staff recommendations, what I came up to is number 1, staffing and training plan for the new emergency services facility. That construction project is underway and is going well, and we anticipate that coming online in the spring. Had a good conversation with the sheriff. He's presented something in writing to me that has some merit. And so we're going to move forward with that conversation and also making plans on what we need to do on our side as well to see if we have a path forward. That's number 1. Roads and bridges deep dive, looking at our roads ordinance, looking at our roads and bridges facility out there, and also what the department may need now. That's the department that y'all had some questions about during the budget process. So I want to go back and revisit some of those. And then the third goal that I have that I think fits with a lot of the staff input is contracts with our outside agencies. And what I'm talking about there is state agencies. We've got a couple of leases on radio towers we need y'all to look at. Local governments, things like Easley and Central and our contracts with them. Also our nonprofits, things like the Dacusville Community Center, the Dacusville Rec, the town of 6 Mile of Ponderosa Park. Going back and looking at all those contracts with outside agencies. Mr. Chairman, those are what I would like for us to work on the next 6 months.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Next up is council laws. We talked about EMS stations. You wanted recycle center review, the brush finder, which we did. Veterans office help. Big for you. We actually added what, a half person there or full? Full-time person. And then DSO items not discussed. We haven't done. So what do you got this time?
I'm number 1 at this point, and this is because of past conversations we've had with projects. How we do our bidding and procurement process. I think we have an issue somewhere along the path. When an organization has projects that are not small projects, one wants to bid on those projects. Even if the economy is good, somebody should still be bidding on the project. Contractor, I've done the bidding process before, and I just feel like there's something miss. I'd like to really take a deep look at procedures and what we do and how we put things out for bid, often up, and all that pre-bid meetings and whatnot. Second thing, and earlier today, I spoke with Linville too. I don't know if it's because the summer is here now, but the litter is back on the roads, rampant. It got great for a while, and now it's really getting bad all over my district and other districts. Don't know what the solution is. I know the inmate workers is not really on the table anymore. Fight for us to figure out a way to handle that. The third thing, and this is a long term, but I want to kind of get the ball rolling on it, is our farm property, what, 130 acres, I think, almost. I know we've already had some really light discussion about combining all the county facilities out there as far as maintenance. Some are already there. Fight for us to start looking at what it's going to be, how much. Too much is going to be how much. That's where I'm at.
Okay, so I know you're doing a sewer project there.
That's correct.
And, long term, you want to try to move building maintenance, vehicle maintenance.
That's correct.
All right, Council Bowers, you had 5 goals. Got past me, but you had 5. Emergency management. Emergency management, fire, EMS, and sheriff. And the EMS did very well. I think the budget was at 24.8%. The sheriff's budget was up 13.4%. Employee retention, so you like Mr. Roper, you talked about pay and giving the pay system some legs, which I think we've done. County rec, we reviewed and tightened those rules. Conservation bank rules set up, we talked about that. Mile Creek, we also done phase 1 that's been paid for. Opioid allocations, we're moving forward on that. So you did well. So what do you got so far to this year? For the rest
I
of
only have 4 this time around, but it's 3.
Okay.
I'll make some on the 4th one. We'll see. Highway 8 corridor, there and easily, looking at an overlay, which we've talked about in the past, kind of like what we've done with 11. But part of that is including conversation with the DOT about improving that road as a whole, from the county line, as far as they can go in Anderson County as far as I'm concerned, but from the county line pretty much all the way through. The county farm project, I think we've all talked in great detail about the old Hinkle building and what it is and what it's not. So that I think is a sooner rather than later project in my eyes. And then obviously this dispatch center, emergency services center behind us. I know that it's in the works, but there's a lot of operational things that will flow and follow that outside the physical structure of the building. And I think one of my goals, priorities would be to make sure that it is able to open and be successful.
Okay, so Mr. Roper and Mr. Bowers, tell us just a little bit about those hurdles.
So just in general, with just the dispatch center alone, right? And I just forgot the name of the agency that does the accrediting for your dispatchers. Yep, APCO are one of those organizations. You know, that's all. There's processes and things that go in line with that. We're talking about, you know, if we're doing our own fire and EMS dispatching, what that looks like, the structure behind that. There's just those little nitpicky things that will be operational changes that will take bandwidth from council, whether it be financial or policy change, because our role in government is policy and not day-to-day operations. So,
Okay. All right, next up is myself. EMS stations was my #1 priority. We're moving along on that. I think Central's going to be up and running this week. The extra Central station.
It's already up and running.
Okay, good. Then you're going to move on easily.
That's right.
Lowering the road tax to 5.3 mils. That was one of my priorities, and that was done. Highway 11, as well as doing some work there, which we're finishing that up there. So my 4 goals would be 3 goals. Yes, 3. When we look at the Alex knows this because we talked about it, trash and junk in yards, even though that is in the ordinance, it's there, it's just all over the place. You have to look different places. I'd like one ordinance that looks at trash and junk in yards, abandoned vehicles, abandoned pools, a lot of those. And then the other, vegetation overgrowth. Now, three of those four things are actually in our ordinance now. Now, they need to be put in one place, be more friendly to your officers. Second goal is troubleshooting the procurement code, which I think he said, so I'm seconding that. And then the DSO, I think we need to go back to that. RVs as a permanent residence, common shared driveways, private driveways. So those would be my three. Next, Council Holloway, you talked about EMS stations, lowering the road tax to 5.3 mils, and slowing growth. What do you got now?
I think we have made significant headway in those early three goals. The new goals that I would like to set for the remainder of the year. Goal number one would be to develop a simple method of price discovery for some of our construction projects. And so we would not be going into a project completely blind before we go through all the process. Give us a gist of where we're going to be standing. Goal number two, I would like to see the culture within the county shift somewhat to where the county employees would feel more comfortable speaking with members of council if they so desired. And goal number three, I would like to develop an on-call list for smaller construction projects that would help us free up our building and maintenance and not tax them so heavily in some issues. So those are my three areas.
So like a list of contractors.
Yes, that we can pull from.
Okay. Okay, Councilor Lang, you're up next. EMS stations, the Sheriff's Department was your top goal. Road tax lowered 5.3 mils. The Performing Arts Center, I would imagine that's still in the works, because I know you're working on that. So that's one of your goals?
Continuing three. Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to be the Performing Arts Center, investigation on that. We're going to get a report on that soon, I hope.
Yes.
Okay. What else? What are your other two?
I'd like to review the rules for boards and commissions. Just do a review and see if there's some updating we can do on that.
Okay.
And then I'd also like to look at, if this falls under the council, look at the county employee handbook. Hasn't been updated for quite a while. And I think that's a big opportunity.
So I think it says August 2016.
Yeah.
That's true.
I think there's a big opportunity there for us to update that.
Okay, so those are three. The Performing Arts Center rules for the boards and commissions. Megan's working on that. Then the employee handbook 2016 update. Okay, Councilor Linville. Child care option. Tonight we're going to be talking about family leave. That's somewhat. Expand the CAP bus system, which we will, if you want to give a presentation on that, you're welcome to. I'm waiting on that. And DSO, like Councilor Wallace mentioned, we didn't get to, but I think we will in the second half. So what are your options? What are your ideas?
Two of those carry over. So UDSO specifically, we paid a firm to do impact fees, and then we sent them back to update it, and then we never heard back on that. So that, I feel like that's just hanging out there, and we never resolved it.
Okay.
As well as we had an affordable housing tax incentive that was presented to us as a sheet and never got discussed. So just like you said, there's some missing pieces of UDSO conversation I'd like to open back up.
Affordable housing, what?
It was an affordable housing tax credit.
Okay.
We had a sheet on it, we never got to discuss it. The bus route funding, that's on, they changed directors in CAP bus twice in the past year and a half, just for a variety of reasons. So that's still something I hope to come to y'all with. It's just pieces together. But there is an idea of having a bus route that it's all the municipalities. And then finally, there's been talk about, we started work on a Pickens County resiliency forum. And ACOG is working on a grant for that right now. But this is resiliency to things like Hurricane Helene and working the way that you can coordinate grants from the federal and state level to come together. There's some groups at Clemson using this. So I would like to formalize County Resiliency Corps and all the partners involved with that. ACOG's already funded the seed for this, but I'd like to make it more formal.
Okay, explain that to me.
So there's a group, Homestead Engineers for Developing Countries is what they used to be called. Now they're more focused, but it's led by a guy named David Vaughn at the university that works entirely on resiliency projects around clean water, energy access, massive weather issues, how you build up resiliency to make sure the wastewater treatment plants don't overflow, that sort of thing. And there's a lot of federal and state money to help with this, but you have to have an entity to ask for it and who knows what they're working on. ACOG specifically has resiliency grants, and they've already awarded one to David Vaughn's team within Pickens County to start working on this. So the issue is resiliency is too big of a word. Like people talk about IT resiliency and suddenly talking about doing all the cybersecurity. We're trying to focus it a little bit more on infrastructure, resiliency of water treatment, water access, safety, storm response, storm preparedness, from Texas alert systems. All that stuff goes together for general resiliency. And we have an expert here who's working on it and trying to keep us really focused and supportive of ACOG. Federal money already going. So basically just having the group of people together, having it be like, I'm not sure if it needs to be a board and commission or if it's a group of experts, part of what we need to work on, but having a resiliency.
Okay, so I just want to do just a real light, quick review here. So, Mr. Roper is talking about dispatch as well as council. You have to hire dispatchers. Right? You said you have 6 now, and you need 12. Is that what the numbers are?
Need more than that, probably.
Okay.
And it's gonna depend on the conversations with the sheriff's office and how we're able to determine division of authority or how that moves forward. So those conversations are ongoing, but we're going to need to be able to, if we have to, staff up and run.
Okay, so at some point you're going to come to us.
That's right.
Okay. My feeling is the council doesn't need to be involved in that.
Okay.
Just kind of work out what you're. This is started under council that was the chair. You can work with him on it, come up with something. Hopefully, it's something we can. Yeah. Like I said, I don't know if we need a meeting on it right now. That's something you have to work on. Roads and bridges. My feeling is, I think when we sunset the EMS committee, I would almost consider a roads and bridges committee. I would think that might be something we might want to do. Contracts, you talk about with, let's say, nonprofits. Like for example, we have the Hagen Mill.
That's right.
He has the rec park. He has the MOU here with the Performing Arts Center. He's got I would just work with them individually. If you can come up with something, and you have to realize you have to be fair. This is my feeling. You have to be fair. So, like, if you're giving something to one group here that you're not giving to everyone else, you just got to say no. And you're going to have to be the referee on it. We could all sit down and go through each one of these things, but honestly, I don't know about the Pickens, and I'm not going to make a trip. I'll be focused on the Hagen Mill if that's something. So I like the idea of division of labor. If you want to get this stuff done, like for example, you have a fire contract in Central, you have one in Beasley. I would work with those councilmen. At some point, it will come to us. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
It would just move quicker. How do you feel about that? Okay. All right. Procurement code. I think we have to have a meeting. Probably a recommendation from the administration, and then anybody who has good input. I think we should probably sit there.
We had talked about having at the EMS committee. We talked about how procurement code could be its own committee because there's a lot of things to talk through. Several of the department heads had things they wanted to do. That I mean, it might take 2 meetings, but you may want to.
Yeah, we could do like for
I think
example.
it'll take longer than 2 meetings.
Yeah, that's why I think.
I really do.
I really think on that one, because it's more of a county, we're not talking about a department, we're talking about something overarching.
Yeah.
I think it's something we should do, kind of a committee, the whole approach,
Okay.
and work on that all together.
You and everybody. Okay.
Yeah, because right now we kind of have 2 go. We have the EMS committee, but then we have this kind of informal where you and Scott, Mr. Lang are working with the current hiring.
Right.
Maybe we could do something like that. We have that one roads and bridges committee, and then we have just maybe 2 councilmen working with it. Whatever we want to do, or everybody. We'll think about it. I would say the farm property that was mentioned at least twice. That's probably immediately. we all sit down, you talk about your vision, what's the next? I would imagine you gotta get a sewer fixed up there before you can do anything.
I have a procurement code before.
Yeah, let's see, the Highway 8 overlay I would discuss when we look at the DSO. When we have a DSO discussion, there's a lot of different things in there. We can discuss that. Trash, junk, abandoned vehicles, vegetation, and pools. Well, obviously, we'll have a meeting about that. That's not a DSO meeting, I don't think, but it's probably just a meeting on that item. The administration, you should sit down with your code officers and get some recommendations on that. Like I said, the wording's already there. Maybe you want to tweak a couple things. It's already there and they're enforcing it. It's just, you gotta look in 2 or 3 different places. Let's see. Let's see, anything else? Boards and commissions, I would work with her. She has boards and commissions you're doing, like, you're looking at the application, you're looking at, the website, you're looking at minutes and things on that. Looking at the rules, maybe you can give a once over on the rules. You can both look at it. If you see something interesting, make a recommendation. If we have to have a meeting about it, we will. If not, if it's a small thing.
Can I add something to that? I think we need to find out what's going on with some of these water districts. Because they're having their own meetings, their own elections, yet we're appointing people. I just want to, I think we need some clarity.
Way ahead of you. We talked about it. I've asked them 5 questions for her.
Okay.
One of them is, what's the rule of who nominates, who appoints? What were the 5 questions I wrote?
As long as it's being addressed.
It's coming. It's going to be on August 11th meeting.
Okay. We're good.
Like, what was the other ones I asked you? Does each board member actually have a letter from approval from the governor? Does the chairman actually know that they don't appoint people themselves? It actually is the governor that does it? Would you mail them a letter explaining that to them? It's things like that. I think there's 5 questions I had, and she's going to present on August 11th.
Awesome.
Because that same issue.
Thank you.
Let's see, anything else? Does anybody want to add on this? DSO, Council Linville, all that stuff you mentioned in DSO, we'll just have a meeting on it. Bring it out. Resiliency code, that's a tough one, I don't know. We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, Jessica had been on part of that too, so maybe we just pick up.
The employee handbook, I don't know. Samantha, are you in the process of rewriting it, or? You are? Okay, is that something you could speed up and get done in the second half of the year? Okay. What do you think?
I think so.
By next week.
Yeah.
Who mentioned that? Was that you? You mentioned it for you.
Scott.
Oh, it was Scott. Okay, then just talk with her if you have any concerns.
So.
Yeah, okay, so we can work on that. But you just, Council Lang will probably call you. If he has anything in particular.
Create policy.
I think that's it. Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Okay, that item's done. Okay, item 2B is going to be a review of South Carolina opioid recovery fund application. Jessica Varney, you're up.
Thank you for putting this item on the agenda. We have our guaranteed political subfund window is open. We will have an application ready to go because council has already approved for 2 recovery homes specifically aimed at women in the county. We approved that, I believe it was in the April meeting. That is going to go forward, and I'm working on that application because the SCORF board changed how they do the application process. They now have a grant management software, and there's only one authorized person that can submit for the county, and that's going to be me moving forward. And I will be working with the partners that council has approved and getting that application in. We did have another partner come forward with a proposal, and they are a recovery home specifically for men in the county. And I think that this would be a great addition to the current application that we're working on. All of our opioid recovery applications for recovery homes would be part of one application. that kind of appeals to me, keeps it all together, very neat. And we can submit that application. I'll be working with them. I have a meeting scheduled this week so that we can go through all of it together. But this recovery home for men is located in 6 Mile, and they came forward. They've been very great to work with so far. They've submitted a preliminary application, which is what you received in your packet. That is a form that I created on Microsoft. That's not their official application. That's just so that I could get some information from them and know who they are and what they're looking to do. They actually updated it, and I received that today. I did not send this out because it's very similar. They're actually asking for a little bit less than what the application you've already seen is. Their request is $209,077 for a program director, case manager, community navigator, and kitchen manager for their house. If council approves this, it will go forward as part of our application. We do have line item severability. So that means if the SCORF board finds that one of the things on our list doesn't fit what they want to approve, they can strike that item. And the rest of our application will still move forward. And so each of our partners would still potentially get other parts of the application approved and be able to continue their work. Also, just want to remind everyone that this is specifically for the guaranteed political subfund money, which is the settlement money from opioid cases. It is money that is guaranteed to the county. We still have to apply for it. And it is different from the discretionary fund that is a larger amount of money that's just available, and everyone across the state has to compete for it. If you have any additional questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
What's he making a recommendation?
Yes, we're recommending that we approve this as a part of our application to the SCORF board, as Ms. Varney said, with the line item severability in case parts of it doesn't qualify. We wouldn't want the whole application to fail. But one of the neat things here is that our application includes prenatal situations where opioids have had impact. It includes incarcerated individuals where there's been an opioid impact. It includes females generally in facilities like this. And so this would add kind of the final component to that, where we're addressing different aspects of the population when it comes to the opioid crisis. So we feel like it's good and comprehensive in that.
I'll make a motion to accept it as presented. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Council Bowers?
The only question I have is, make sure I read it, that still leaves a little money on the table. But it's not money. Our year one money is, we're great, so we're not at risk of anything rolling out.
Absolutely. We are really ahead of the game as far as that goes. We are not at risk of losing anything. I know that was mentioned last time. So yes, we've been keeping up with that very well. And as cases continue to come forward and get settled, I imagine that more funding will be on its way.
Council Worship.
The physical location. Can you divulge that?
We got a copy of there. Put that.
I knew it was around 6 Mile, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact location, and I don't know if they would want to put that into the public record as well.
I
Recovery
didn't know
home.
if you could divulge that or
I'll be glad to give you that information after the meeting or at a later date. I wouldn't want to make them uncomfortable putting the location out there.
My only question, well, actually, I have two questions. One question is, this is a lot of money, these groups. I mean, the amount of money that's coming in for this program is. Now, is there any follow-up to how that money's been spent? Is it us doing it, or is it the state doing it?
There are quarterly reports that go to the SCORF board. They keep up with all of that information. They are audited yearly. So all of the awarded partners have to submit their outcomes. They do that as part of the application process and say what they expect to see, and then they follow up. So
Okay.
yes, there is follow-up for all of them.
Given what the county's goals are, how are you using any of this money, or some of it, to further county goals, which is different, right? I mean, these are goals, but we're talking about stuff that we put our hands on every day. Give us a review, because I know we've approved some of that.
We do have several programs happening, some that have already been mentioned, but the main ones that immediately impact county operations include behavioral health services that has counselors and clinicians in place within our detention center. That program has been going for since the beginning of the SCORE funding. It was one of our first ones that was approved. So those individuals are actually in the detention facility. They are working with prisoners and they cooperate with our county staff to make that happen. So our detention officers are involved in that process. We also have our community paramedic that will be in place as soon as that individual is hired. It's hard to find the right people for these positions because it does take a special person to work with this particular issue. So we're looking for that person. That will be someone who is on county staff, so that immediately impacts the county and our operations. And we also have, is there anything I'm forgetting?
Showcase manager.
The judicial case manager, thank you, sir. And that person is actually on staff with behavioral health, but they are working also in the detention center and helping individuals navigate that judicial process.
A couple of points there to stress what Ms. Barney's saying is the concept of that program, the judicial case manager, community paramedic, and also the counselor in the jail is something that was developed by county staff. That was, for lack of a better way of putting it, our idea that we rolled out when we first learned this money was available. Chief Deputy's in the back of the room, and I'm not going to put him on the spot, but I think he could give us a head nod. How much money we spend on medicine and food at the detention center is a significant portion of what y'all have to deal with. So this is aimed at cutting down on recidivism. Hopefully bridging, when that person walks out the door of the jail, bridging them to care and also bridging them to getting through the hurdles in the judicial system. So it's aimed at lowering recidivism. It'll either be able to demonstrate that or its funding won't be powerful in the coming years.
Okay, so there's three things you're doing. Right? The three?
I don't think
Specific to the county, yes.
Yeah.
There's more programs, but those are
I know, those-
specifically
yeah.
impacting county
But
operations.
those are the three. At community paramedic, the case, judicial case manager, and the person.
We've already funded the paramedic. We're
Yes,
just looking for the person.
yes, we're just trying to hire
Actually, the
them.
vehicle came in for that paramedic this past week. So
I was thinking we did, but I couldn't.
Yes, yes, sir.
Question.
Thanks. Okay, Council Holloway.
Is there anything currently in play that would measure the success of this program?
Yes, as part of the application process, they list out their outcome measures. So they will be measured by how much they are able to show what they've accomplished throughout the year that this term runs. So our application window will be closed on August 1st. I imagine the SCORE board will be reviewing applications in September, and we will have our notice back of what is funded and what isn't. And that process, or that program start date is September 1st. I'm sorry, November 1st.
Okay, any other discussion on that motion? In favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Good job. The next item up is number 2C, discussion of paid family leave. Council Lindsay.
Yeah, thank you for taking this from the budget meeting to this discussion so we can talk about it more. I'd like to start off the meeting, I'd like to call forward Anthony Buckner from Pickens County First Steps. He's going to give us a little overview of what this kind of leave would do to specifically affect.
Thank you.
I have a little PowerPoint. I don't know if Megan had easier for me to talk with that, but I can. Oh, I need that. I can look at it. Okay, sorry. Okay. Yeah, so I'm with Pickens County First Steps. For those of you who don't know what we do, we're a local nonprofit. So there's one of us in each county in the state, and we serve try to meet the needs and fill in the gaps in services for children and families in the prenatal to age 5 space. Our charge is to serve the most vulnerable of families first. A lot of the work that we do, though, is universal. So that's why Councilman Linville asked me to speak a little bit. So I'm going to give you, I think I might be pushing the wrong button here. Okay, there we go. So just some facts about what we know about children is that 80% of a child's brain architecture is built in the first 3 years of life. So we know that early experiences are very important and they matter. Parental bonding is essential to creating secure attachments. So when we think about secure attachments, we're talking about how that impacts children for their lifetime in regards to emotional regulation, strong self-esteem. They're going to have better social skills if they've had a secure attachment with their parents. It also impacts the way that they relationally work with people and their trajectory of their life. So it really provides that strong foundation for healthy development and well-being. And we know that parental bonding happens within the first 3 months of life is really critical. And then we also know that child care centers typically don't accept infants into care until after 12 weeks of age. And I think that you've also heard from Councilman Linville about our child care crisis in our county, that 50% of our census tracts are considered child care deserts. If we broke it down to looking at infant care, we're going to see more of a deficit. So why is that? It's because of ratios established by the state. So what that means is there has to be 1 caregiver per 5 infants. So that's birth to age, 12 weeks to age 1 for a center. If we're looking at centers that consider themselves to be high quality, so they're participating in the ABC quality rating scale of our state, and they're going to be 1 caregiver to every 4 young children under the age of 1. So we also want to make sure that we're thinking about what is the infant mortality rate in our state. So we have a very high infant mortality rate. So those are infants who die before their first birthday. So if we look at just what we are compared to the rest of the United States, so in South Carolina, we have 32.3 deaths for every 1,000 births. In the U.S., it's 25 per 1,000 births. When we have a very high maternal mortality rate. So these are women who are pass away while either they're pregnant or in childbirth or very soon after giving birth. So we have about almost 7 out of every 1,000 pregnant women pass away in South Carolina. And if you're looking at the U.S., it's 5.6 for every 1,000 births. So I pulled up, they break it down for our maternal vulnerability. So this is where we're seeing poor health outcomes for women who are pregnant or have given birth recently. So you can see that we have a very high in our county maternal vulnerability rate. And you can see the indicators that they're looking at. You can also see the disparity that we have when we're looking at race. And then there's preterm births. Those 2 websites break that information down a little bit more for you. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go into all of that unless you just really want to. But why I'm giving you all this information is because all of that plays into the fact that we want our moms to be healthy because they're carrying our future citizens that are going to impact our economy. So we want to make sure that we're providing the best places, best environment we can. So what are the benefits for paid paternal leave? So again, it's going to increase that secure attachment. It's going to decrease infant mortality rates. It's going to increase the initiation and duration of breastfeeding. So there's all kinds of great studies about the benefits of breastfeeding. Increase well-child visits. So if a mom doesn't have to schedule getting off work when their baby's young and they're going to all those well-child visits right after delivery, they're going to be seen faster and more often. It's going to reduce the incident of abuse and neglect because we know
that a huge indicator of abuse and neglect is going to be when parents are stressed. So again, for parents, it's going to increase that bonding with the baby, increase the success in managing that stress, which again, it's going to reduce that abuse and neglect. Sorry, you can't see that one very well. Increase morale and job performance. Also, I heard y'all mention employee retention. This is a great thing for employee retention. And then you're going to have a lower risk of postpartum depression in moms when they're allowed to stay and bond with their baby. So again, the employee benefits are increased morale, job performance, increased retention rates, and ultimately improving the health of our future workforce. So what we want to look at best practice, we think about 6 weeks of paid paternal leave. 4 to 6 is kind of the standard when we look at what best practice is. If we're going to think about what optimal, we're going to look at 12 weeks of paid paternal leave. So, I mean, I recognize that that is a huge cost. However, I will say that the school district of Pickens County just adapted in the spring, adopted 12 weeks of paternal leave for their employees, and they estimate it's going to cost for the whole district. Pardon?
Parental leave.
Parental leave. What did I say?
Paternal.
Oh, parental. Sorry.
Okay.
About $110,000. So we're thinking about the front cost investment based on what it could cost for when we think about what happens when children don't bond with their moms. It's really a low cost option, and that is the biggest employer in our county. So what are the alternatives if that is not an investment that the county would like to make for their county employees? You can offer an opportunity for employees to work remotely if their job allows that. Allow for maybe shorter work weeks, and maybe they get to work 4 days a week or a 3-day work week for some time. Allowing mothers to bring their infants to work. So we call baby-friendly work environment. So the state office of First Steps has that. So they have 6 weeks of paid parental leave, and then they allow the moms to bring their babies to work for the next 6 weeks until they can enter child care, or longer if that is something that the mom would like to do. So.
Council Linville, what do you?
Well, I wanted Amity to speak to give you all a little bit of a background. The reason and I'll let you save it for questions. Is that okay?
Sure. I mean, I may or may not know the answer, but I'm happy to find it.
She knows everything. The reason I wanted to add parental leave is I've been going to some conferences on this because childcare is important to me as an issue. I think I told y'all when I first joined, when I first joined council, I went to the Commerce Park and I started talking to all the owners of the companies in the Commerce Park, and I said, wouldn't y'all really like to have a bus system? Isn't that going to help with all of your issues you have with hiring? And to a T, they all said, that'd be nice, but what we really need is more childcare. So I knew that childcare became an issue in Pickens County, and that's where we started having discussion, formed the task force. And as part of the Pickens County Childcare Workforce Task Force, I was at a conference, of a prenatal to 3 conference nationally, and they said that if a local government could do anything, if you could only have one policy that would make the biggest difference for mothers, babies, families, mental health, physical health, bonding, poverty reduction, starting off on the wrong foot. If you can only do one policy, the number one policy a local government or business or state could pass is paid parental leave. It just sets the foundation that helps form an entire really, and it's for health and economy. So I wanted to propose that as a council, we're responsible for about 770 employees. Our state has already decided that state employees are important enough. Governor McMaster signed into law in 2022, 6 weeks of leave for the person who gives birth and 2 weeks of leave for the secondary parent, supporting parent. And that was signed in 2022, and then in 2023, the South Carolina legislature added that to all public school teachers. So we currently have a lot of people who work for the government who are already receiving this. States in the U.S. that have a statewide, like by law, have to do this. South Carolina is not there for every employer in the state, but they do give it to every state, everyone who works for the state or is a public school teacher. So I'm just thinking that for our 770 employees, we can extend this benefit that would allow new parents to stay home paid. What's happening now, and I asked Sam to come here from HR because we've been talking about this. What happens now when you have a baby and you're a Pickens County employee is you cobble together all the vacation and sick time that you've saved up. And you try to do that to stay paid as long as possible. And when you can't, then you take unpaid leave under FMLA, which is a national law. If you can't afford to stay home, which many people can't, then you're trying to figure out childcare. Even if you did stay home the whole 6 weeks, when you come back to work, you have no vacation and sick time left. So say you have your baby in February, you're then stuck for the entire year with no vacation or sick time. But that doesn't mean you don't take it. What you then end up is trying to go anyway, trying to find someone to cover a shift, figuring out how to go unpaid days, doing what you can, and often leaving your coworkers in the lurch because it's harder to plan around because you don't have these days to take off. And I think everybody here has had kids. I don't want to make too many assumptions, but there's a bazillion doctor's appointments and events, plus increased chances of getting sick. You put your baby in daycare, everyone's family's getting sick, things are happening. So my proposal is that we offer this as a benefit to our employees.
Okay.
And let me follow that up. There's a lot of ways to offer paid parental leave. There's a lot of different numbers of weeks of who offers it. In order to simplify this as much as possible, my proposal is that we adopt the state plan. And that's what Megan sent out this morning. It didn't make it in our packet, but that's the paid parental leave toolkit. Instead of asking our HR to come up with their own version, if we completely just adopt the state's policy, it's outlined here. It was sent to all divisions of the state so they would know how to implement it, so we can.
Now, it's both the father and the mother?
The mother gets 6 weeks, the father gets 2 weeks.
Do we have a cost, how much it's gonna cost us? Because what I was reading was, I think the numbers we had from the county was it was 59, on an average, it was $5,933 per employee. But short-term disability will pay 60% of that, and we have to just pick up the tail of 40%. Is that true?
Can I ask Sam to come up to answer questions? Because that's not
above my pay
Okay,
grade.
is that true?
So the way short-term works is the employee has to be enrolled into the benefits, and if they're paying a premium, they can apply. That is through a third party, so if they're approved, it can be anywhere from 2 to 9 weeks of paid benefit, and it's 60% of their income base salary, not in overtime calculation.
So short-term disability picks up that first part if they're enrolled?
So you have to go unpaid for the first 29 days. So at that time, the employee would use their sick or vacation time, and then at the 30th day, that is when short-term should be able to kick in if they are approved. And that is 2 weeks to a 9 week.
And that we pay the 40% cost us, right? No,
Yes, sir.
no, we pay all of it,
The third party pays the
60%, but then who pays the rest?
You don't get it.
They don't get it. They only
They
get
don't get, only get 6% if they paid into the ability pot.
The way our policy is currently written is you can only use your sick and vacation time. If short-term kicks in, the vacation and sick time discontinues, and you will pick up your short-term. Once it's exhausted and you're still absent, you're welcome to pick back up to
Okay,
get sick.
I didn't get any.
it.
So start over, so there's a person that this policy gets passed.
Mhm.
How does it get paid along the way?
If this policy gets passed,
Short-term disability will pay some of that, right?
60%.
Only if they opt into short-term
Yeah, it's
disability.
voluntary.
Okay, that's what I'm getting.
Voluntary.
So short-term disability will pay for 60% of this cost. Now, who pays for the tail of the 40%?
If we are covering, if it's passed to cover 4 to 6 weeks of paid leave, we would cover the additional.
40%. That's what I was getting.
Yes.
That's what I said.
But only, not everybody's gonna have the 60%.
Well, then
That's
who pays for that we pay all of it?
Then we pay 100%. Yes.
Okay, so in summary, if this gets passed and they have short-term disability, the third provider pays 60% of it, the county pays 40%. Person doesn't have short-term disability, the county pays 100%. Now, how much is this gonna cost us annually?
Well, I don't know about what the calculations then with the 40% being calculated with short term being paid out. The cost that was given to Counselor Linville. We just base this off the average base salary of all of our full-time employees.
Yeah, 59.33.
Yes, and so last year we had 33 total employees out on FMLA. This does not only involve new parents.
We don't know how many.
So we don't have an exact cost for just the parental. I did not want to.
Want to make a guess?
We don't have the facts.
$10 million?
We don't have.
Less than 10 million.
You don't know, you don't know how many people
So
are
you
there.
don't know what it's gonna cost. Okay, not good. Okay. Second thing is, how many people, when you look at states or counties in this state, how many offer this and how many don't?
I think you said 6 that we reached.
So only the 60-something% of counties responded to the survey. Of those that responded, 6 of them offer
How many did not offer?
it.
But 60% of 46,
Yeah,
that's 24 responded, so 6 said they do, so that would be 18, if I'm doing the math in my head correctly. 18 said they did.
Well done.
One of our counties municipalities offers parental
Yeah,
paid
City of
leave
Clemson
until
offers it.
6 weeks.
City of Clemson just passed it.
Mr. Chairman, one thing that it might be my misunderstanding, but there is a difference, and this is not pro or con, but I just want to make sure there's clarity on these issues. The employees that have short-term disability, they pay a premium for that. If the policy were that the county paid 100%,
Nobody's gonna take short-term.
for that reason, they might take it for other reasons.
Also, can I speak to cost?
One. Okay. Cost here.
To speak to cost, people are having babies anyway, right? And so we are already paying for their sick and vacation time. So, and then they're still having to take some sick and vacation anyway and be unpaid. And they're more likely to be able to come back to work if they've been paid. So there's a hard to do with exact, like it's going to cost number ... because they're going to be using leave in a different way after this. Because the way that they're using vacation and sick time is going to be different. So it's not like it's just a sudden gift, because they're also using vacation. They were using vacation and sick before, and we were paying for that. And in fact, after a conversation with Sam, we opened up a bag of possibly needing to change PTO in general, because this becomes very complicated. Are you sick? Are you on vacation? Or did you have a baby? For this, the state leave says you have to give 30 days notice. It's only if you're full-time and you've been here for a year. And then HR clearly knows, okay, they're on paid parental leave. I know exactly how to fund this and how long it's going to last. And it's not a cobbling together, like she started to say, hey, for this 2 weeks, I want to do vacation, but then there's a vacation day of Thanksgiving. So subtract that one. Then I want to add 3 days of sick, which is what I did. I had a baby while I was working for the state. And it was this, I literally sat with a calendar and had different days marked if it was sick day, vacation day, or a day that I already had from the county, and had to turn in timesheets each week to reflect that. It actually simplifies that, but it's not a direct new cost because they're taking the leave anyway.
Okay, so who wrote this? It says 4 of 19 on that.
I did.
Okay, so it says comparative insights, SC counties, 6 counties with paid leave, 24 counties without paid leave.
That's how many responded.
Okay, so 30, it looks like 30 responded, 26 have it, 4 don't, 24 don't. So 4 out of 5 don't have it, according to those numbers. Okay, that's the answer I was looking for. All right, next question is, well, no, actually, the way,
More responded.
well,
On
no,
the
well, like,
six that-
no, but what it says here, it says, counties offering paid leave, Beaufort, Charleston, Sutton, 6 of them, 24 counties without paid leave.
Okay, yeah, that's different.
That's different. So, like I said, it's kind of versus what it says out of the 24. So it's pretty lopsided. Okay. All right. Now here's my question for you, Council Linda. Why did this wait to the end? I mean, at the previous meeting to that last meeting, we talked about pay raise for employees. We talked about a 4% raise or a 5% raise. We gave them the 5% raise. So that was the maximum raise. So we could have gone 4% and maybe done some of this. But by the time this was brought up, we were already at the 5%, which is the highest I could find in the county. Actually, that's the highest increase. When I went back and looked at 20 years of pay raises in this county, other than salary studies, the 5% pay raise has been the highest.
Now, top of my head, that's
So
what
we
I
did a
recall.
lot for employees this year. So my question to you was, why did you wait until when we determined that? Was it oversight? Or wait for third reading or?
It was a little bit of, I needed a better understanding of the state policy and that basically I was kind of watching for what the states were doing. And then I was I did not realize, to be completely honest, it's part of learning my job as a council member. I did not realize until we wrapped up that discussion how much we could ask in terms of benefits. I thought that was something that HR handled and council did. So a bit of it was a learning curve for me of realizing this is something that I request. It's been on my, y'all know childcare and the task force has been requesting this for a while. I didn't realize I could ask for it as part of the budget process. So that's why it did come in late.
Okay, but that puts it at a disadvantage because.
Right, but of 770 employees, I expect that not that many are going to have a baby. I mean, you have to go to age and all the other factors in starting a family. I think that's a different conversation with whether or not all of them deserve a raise, which was a major catch-up of years of problems and trying to even out everybody else.
Now, the catch-up was the year before, which was the salary stuff. This was a.
This was a
This called keep up.
This was a keep up, right?
Well,
This was
beyond
trying,
keep up.
this is-
Inflation's doing 8%.
but we had gone some years of not doing anything. This was keeping Pickens County competitive as a place to work. As we've seen, we've had some trouble hiring recently. That's came up tonight. It's come up in several conversations.
How is your retention rate right now?
From what I understand, it's good. You kind of deal with it day to day.
It's improved tremendously. We don't have as many postings. I don't have an exact number for you, but I
Is
can
it,
tell you it's
is
improved.
it excellent, good, fair, or poor?
I would say it's good.
Does anybody else have any other thoughts? Yes, sir.
I think that, without getting into the weeds of it all, I think coming up with a physical number, what it would actually cost, you could look year over year, look at a 5-year average, how many employees, team members do we have out on maternity leave? Don't need to know details other than how many we have. You come up with a number, what it would actually cost us. My only other thing in the short-term disability piece kind of does throw a
Monkey wrench.
monkey wrench in it a little bit because some folks will take short-term disability because they see it as a good investment because you never know what's going to happen. Once insurance, right? And some folks will take it purely because they're having a child and they're not thinking anything about kids. And I haven't read this through to see, but I do think that there's a big difference in the 40% versus 100% when you're talking about covering. And whether the short-term disability is part of what would behoove the county to cover the other 40%, you know what I'm saying, versus covering it all. But again, that comes down to the real numbers of it, I think, is really what it comes down to. I mean, I'm not against the idea of it, but, you know, if you're not going to walk on a car lot and say, I'm going to take this truck home, you know exactly what it's going to cost.
The one issue with that is I believe that you don't have to tell anyone you're having a baby. All you do is apply for it.
No, when you apply for FMLA, and I deal with it on the daily, when you apply for FMLA, you don't get all the details, but you know you have an idea. Is it person's own? Is it for maternity? Is it there's like 4 or 5 different criteria out because of work or family or intermittent so it does break it down into the criteria you can figure out plus enough. And I only know that is I literally deal with it on
Do you agree with that?
Yes.
So do you think you could figure out how many? I mean, I just feel weird. How many people had babies over the last 5 years?
Well, here's my take on it. I was the one that asked, when a councilman asked for information, we'll come back to all of us. The councilman asked us, which I was the one that asked this. The cost per employee is $99,362. That's pay, medical, retirement contribution, paid sick days, paid vacation, paid holidays, workman's compensation. That doesn't include the $9,300 that we pay for retired employees. We're paying about $100,000 to an employee right now. Now, the retention is good. Now, I would save this for a time when the retention isn't, in my opinion. The bigger issue is when he talks about dispatch. We've got to hire dispatchers. I understood it was, we have 6 now, we need 10 full-time and 2 part-time. You're saying more.
It's more than that.
We have to find the money to do that. Because that's not in the budget. So my thing is that is a higher priority given the two things I just said, the initial cost now, and the benefits that they're getting, and then the idea that retention's high. What I would do differently, and I'm gonna ask you a question, is do you ever consider combining sick pay and vacation pay and just calling it PTO and making it simple? You're considering that. Is that something you would like to do?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna make a substitute motion. So here a second.
I'll second it, but it's perfectly in our new employee.
Okay, so my substitute motion is to take sick pay, vacation pay, call it PTO. You just didn't say you didn't, you just didn't say, you really believe it.
We can't change the name of these two and make it one name.
Tomorrow is
There's
fine.
more to it than just.
Right, we'd like to come back with a handbook and also propose some other things in the handbook.
The other part that goes with that is the liability that you carry with, when I say liabilities, the amount. So, caps, and then if you hit a certain cap, you allow folks to cash out and, to keep, so that you continue to earn. I mean, all of that plays into it. And I think that, and we talked about this in 17, we talked about this in 18, we talked about this in 19, and that understanding is where a lot of folks get lost in it.
Right.
But it is, once you understand it, it's just cleaner.
There'll be some
easier.
compliance issues too with bank time.
Yeah, and we have some ideas we'd like to bring back, like I said, at the end of the year.
So
Okay.
is your motion to just go ahead and do this and let them do it?
Yeah,
Or they'll bring us back information?
my motion is to do it when they can implement it.
Thank you.
So if you can implement it,
Because I'd like to know a little bit more about
PTO versus,
And we'd like to come back and educate council and get their input on it also. But, it's not a one-way street.
it. One question.
okay, so,
Is this, and this kind of goes along with this policy here, that county, is that all the departments?
Yes. Yes.
Everybody here is under the same vacation schedule, sick leave, that's county-wide.
That is correct. Have different hourly schedules, so you'll see a range
Mhm.
in each year, and that covers all of those.
Cause I know EMS, their stuff, probably sheriff's office, a little different work schedule. But this is the policy, the whole.
okay, so I guess I gotta, change my motion a little bit to the administration implements it when they see fit.
I think that if I could speak to your motion, it should be that you directed us to bring a specific proposal back for you all to review before it's implemented. Not necessarily requiring a vote, but want to make sure we got full understanding before we implement.
Yeah, I'll just do that. That's my substitute motion. So basically what you're gonna do is just bring a recommendation to us?
That's right.
But we're voting on that separately from the.
Your motion. Your motion just got.
Substitute motion.
You can, I'll let you make it again if you want. We can vote, but
Yeah, I wasn't finished discussing it.
okay, that's, the substitute motion basically wipes out.
Oh,
So, but that's fine.
Because I'm fine voting, I'm pro PTO, but I don't want to wipe out my own motion.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, we'll continue to discuss. All right, so that's anything. So the motion is,
For us to develop a way to implement a pay time off policy and to bring it back to you for your input before we implement.
hopefully with the handbook.
That's right.
Okay, any discussion?
It's a semantic change. Off sick leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That is what I'm saying. Absolutely.
How you bank it.
That was nice.
Yeah, there's some administrative stuff, there's some timing, there's programming for our system to be able to track all that.
You're thinking about the end of the year?
That's what we've talked about internally. We'd like to, that seems like a long time, but it's not a long time when you have to actually implement it with each employee.
Okay, so we'll expect some. So we'll expect that handbook by the end of the year. Any comments?
Well, I'll just say that I believe there's plenty of companies around that have PTO programs already in place that you could use as a resource, how they implement it, how they changed to the PTO system. That might make it your work a lot easier.
Berkeley County has already done it.
There you go.
Yeah, we've already
So
looked
I know
at
my
Berkeley County.
company has PTO.
Yeah, that's kind of
You know,
standard in the corporations.
Do you know how many counties have done?
I have not researched it yet.
All right, so those in favor, raise your right hand. Same sign, passes unanimously.
Okay. I think it's worth saying, we've talked a lot in this council, and Chairman Sadie, you bring it up regularly about how we have too many savings in our general fund. And I know we're about to make some big spending choices, but we also had the value of our mill increase by 12%. The county's worth more, and we've shown our employees that they're worth more. To me, it could cost us very little some years, maybe some years or more, but to me, paying paid parental leave sort of falls under those "it's just the right thing to do" category that I think sometimes as a government we can just make. We can say this is what we respect, the same way we respect our employees to not have to call and pretend to be sick when they want to take a vacation day. You can say, you just had a baby. You need 6 weeks to rest, to bond, to set up a family, to be able to find childcare. As Emily said, doesn't even exist until 12 weeks. It's saying that we want you to be able to have a family and have a job at the same time. And we're talking about short-term disability. The people who most need this leave policy are people who can't afford to be buying short-term disability insurance. They need the protection of knowing they can take 6 weeks off at peace and pay their rent, pay their groceries, and be able to come back to work and choose to come back to Pickens County and choose to work here and know that they can have a family and work for Pickens County at the same time. And on top of that, we end up with healthier babies. I mean, the whole, down the road, the more money you spend on prenatal and baby is a economic benefit way further down. These babies are less likely to be sick, to be addicted. They're more likely to graduate high school. Like, there's all this science that links the prenatal to the first 6 to 12 weeks of life with so many positive benefits. And so we can argue over, is it $50,000? Is it $150,000? How much it's going to be each year? To me, this is under the category of it's the right thing to do to show you care about families in Pickens County and to show you care about our employees, and that you want our employees to stay here and continue a work-life balance that allows you to have a family and be employed here. That, to me, is the more important discussion. So I'd like to return to my motion to offer paid parental leave for employees of Pickens County following the toolkit as passed by the State House in 2022 and updated in 24.
Right here, second. No, fails without a second. Next item up is number 3. 3, executive session. I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session for personnel matters related to hiring the county attorney. Do I hear a second? Any discussion? Favor, raise your right hand. First, same sign, passes unanimously.